Alright guys, let's go over the balance patch changes for Team Super Heroine, starting off with Mai. So the first one is auto combo related, we don't care about those. Far A is going to have reduced knockback on hit and block. So when you end a string with an A button, whether it's a crouching A, far A, close A, whatever it is, you're typically plus on block, and this allows you to continue your pressure because it's still your turn. So the problem with Mai's far A is that it had too much knockback, so you couldn't really continue the pressure because anything that you do would be too far away. But now she's gonna be able to do her sweep. It's now gonna reach. Far C would reach, and she's gonna be generally closer, so you could do something like a run-up grab in case the opponent is expecting those other two things. So kind of like a minor buff. It's more like for the smaller things like better pressure, but still really good to have. Alright, next up, close B. This one's not really important. Far B is going to have an expanded hitbox downwards. So if you guys don't already know, there are a lot of moves in this game that whiff on crouching characters because the trade-off is that it's got good reach, right? Now, the difference is that when you use it in a string, it will hit crouching characters, so you don't need to force stand them. So the problem with her far B previously is that sometimes it still whiffed on crouching characters even in a string. So when you do a quick max confirm, it would actually drop. But now they're going to expand the hitbox downwards so that you can do a complete confirm into quick max without worrying about dropping the combo. So a small quality of life improvement or fix to my. Next one, far D is going to have reduced hurt box. So this is going to anti-air a little bit better without trading against other characters. So that's good. Just kind of improving people's non-DP anti-airs. The next one's kind of a nerf. So the blowback has gonna have reduced upper side hitbox, so it's gonna anti-air a little less better. Expanded the hitbox downward, so it's gonna hit crouching characters better. I didn't realize that was an issue. I don't think this would whiff on any crouching characters. They're gonna expand the hurt box so that it follows the hitbox. That makes sense. And then lastly, they're gonna increase the overall frames by 2. So this is gonna recover a little bit slower, right? You can't spam it as much, but it's still gonna be a really good button. The next one's a really good buff. So her target combo, she's always had this. They're gonna increase the damage of the second from 45 to 60, so a pretty good damage buff. The second hit now force stands opponent. Most of her combos are going to be possible either way, even without the force stand. But I think what they're going to do is going to make it so that she can combo into her EX scroll dive. If I could kind of showcase it here. There we go, something like that. And then lastly, they're going to reduce the opponent knockback distance on hit, so it's going to land more consistently. Because previously she might have been too far. The opponent might have been too far to get hit by the whole string. And then the last one, they're going to increase the cancel window by 10 frames. So you can see how late that I can cancel this. It's an insanely good block string right here because you have all the time in the world to cancel into whatever you want and it's still going to connect. Kind of crazy. I don't think I've ever seen something that can cancel this late in the game. So really good stuff. Now, the reason they're buffing this move is because they gave her a new commando mode in this game, which does more damage and hits slow. So it kind of really made the target combo a moot kind of thing in her moveset and almost useless. But they're going to, add these buffs to make it a little bit more useful. So you could use that instead if you're more comfortable. Next one, her A version of her projectile is going to have reduced knockback duration by 2 frames when blocking. So in other words, the opponent will recover 2 frames faster on block. And this is kind of a general nerf across the board against projectiles. Typically, when you use an A projectile on block, it's going to be plus because it's slower with more startup time. And now they're going to make it so that it's less positive on block because they want to kind of weaken the zoning game in KOFXV. Alright, next one. This one's pretty big. So her EX scroll dive is now going to be, let's see. You can now jump attack after touching the side of the stage. So let me demonstrate this. So on the way down, when she touches the wall from her scroll dive, she's going to be able to use an air normal, which is pretty crazy because in that reset situations like the one I just showed you, that's something that she could do to continue the pressure. Like, for example, well, that wasn't even a true combo. Maybe this. So yeah, I mean I whiffed it, but you get the idea. So a pretty good buff for Mai. It's probably going to be only practical in the corner because I don't really see it being able to use mid-screen because you're going to be so far away from the opponent. But still something good for Mai in case you want to go for a reset instead of damage. And then next up, the same change, sorry, not same change, but the change to the same move is that her EX Score Dive is going to have some projectile invincibility partway through the attack. So that's kind of a minor buff. I don't really see a lot of people using this against projectiles because by the time you take into the air and dodge a projectile, whatever follow-up that you can do is not going to really punish the opponent because they would have recovered in time. Next up, her Cartwheel Super did the wrong motion here. So they've made a couple of changes to this. So they reduced the follow-up attack window besides on the last hit. And then the normal and max versions of the final attack are only able to be entered once each. So in the previous version, there was a kind of a weird infinite where if you hit this move kind of high enough in the air, you could kind of do this super multiple times, almost like an infinite. And they're basically just taking that out. And they're kind of doing that with pretty much any move that could be done repeatedly multiple times in a row. Not really a nerf because there's a lot of other practical combos that Mai can do. That infinite is just something that's kind of cool that people could do before. Anyways, not a whole lot of changes to Mai functionally, just some quality of life improvements to her. And I think that's fine. She doesn't really need anything crazy. I think she's really good in this iteration of KOF. Alright, moving on to Yuri. Alright, so first thing with Yuri, she has a new Shadow Strike animation. And as you know, Shadow Strikes and Blowbacks in this game share the same animation. So some people's some people's Shadow Strikes weren't as good as other characters because it was lacking the horizontal reach. And SNK realized that and decided, hey, let's just change her animation of the Shadow Strike to Farsi so that it has more range. So that way it could actually be more practical, which is how it should be. So good change for Yuri. I think it makes a lot of sense. Next up, Far A is now going to have an expanded hitbox downwards so it can hit crouching characters. And to me, this is a useless buff because you already have Far B, which has more range and does the same exact thing anyways. So it's really insignificant for Far A to be able to do that. It's better to just keep it as a move that anti-airs or anti-hops. Next up, crouching A is going to start up 1 frame faster. So this is kind of a general buff that I'm seeing across the board is that light normals are going to start up a little bit faster. So that's good. And then blowback is going to start up a little bit faster. Yuri's blowback is really fast already compared to others in the game. So for it to start up even faster, it's just going to be really good for her. And you can kind of spam it, and it's a really good anti-air too. The next buff is her biggest buff. So her command normal is going to have reduced knockback on hit and block. So finally she can have 2 hit confirms to go into EX Saiha because previously if you tried to do that, the knockback was so far that you wouldn't be able to combo anything off of this. Really, this command normal was a very useless hit confirm on day 1 of this game. And now that she can finally combo into it, is a huge deal for Yuri. And she can even do it off of lights too. Yeah, previously, like, she only had 1 hit to combo into EX Saiha. But now, thanks to this command normal buff, you get all day to go into it. So really good buff for Yuri. This is something that she really needed. Next up, the full charge projectile for Koken. Now they're going to reduce the charge time that it takes for you to throw out the projectile by 5 frames. So if you don't already know, all versions of Yuri's fireball, if you hold it long enough, it sends out a projectile. And so the general buff is just make it so that this charge is less than what you need to throw out the fireball. Pretty good minor buff in my opinion. It's not something that you use very often. You know, it's just a kind of gimmicky zoning tool, and it's not going to win you matches. It's just a tool that's nice to have, and they're going to make that tool a little bit more practical. Alright, next up, the C version of her DP. They're going to increase the damage of the first hit from 65 to 80, so it's going to be a damage buff for this move, which is good. And then the EX version of this is going to start up 2 frames faster, which puts it up there as among some of the fastest reversals in the game at 4 frames. And they also expanded the hitbox of the first hit and third and fourth hit. So the previous problem with this move is that in some combos, the EXDP will whiff because the hitbox for the first couple of hits just isn't there, and so you would get punished even though you're getting a hit confirm off of it. Next up, the D version of the command normal is going to have a faster run speed, so it's going to be harder for opponents to react to this. So that's going to make this move a little bit more practical. And then finally, her fireball projectile, her fireball super, C version is going to have, it's going to be faster on startup, the projectile is going to be faster, and as a small trade-off, they're going to make this recover a little bit slower. So this is pretty good. You know, you can kind of differentiate it between the the A version, which is a little bit slower. So you can kind of catch a lot of opponents from full screen in the fireball war. So overall, really good buffs for Yuri. The biggest one is really the command normal, because now it gives her a practical extra hit confirm to go into her most dangerous BNB. Alright, lastly, let's move on to Athena. Alright, finally we have Athena, who is not as fortunate as her teammates when it comes to buffs. In fact, she actually received a couple of nerfs, which I think were a little bit uncalled for, but let's go ahead and just go through them. So first of all, her Shadow Strike also has a new animation like Yuri, because as you know, her blowback has very little reach, so they're going to make it something that's a lot more useful. So they're going to share the animation with Far D. Next up, Far B is going to have an increase above facing hitbox, so it's going to anti-air better, and on top of that, it's now going to be special cancelable. So I thought this is how it was going to be on day 1, because this was possible in KOFXV 13, and I actually used this a lot as a good anti-air and locked them down with a fireball, and you know, now it's finally back as a balance patch. So this is a good change. Alright, next up, Far D is going to have a reduced upper side hitting hitbox, so now it's going to anti-air a lot worse than it used to, which I think is a pretty dumb nerf, because this Far D does take time to come out. It's got a far reach, it's not special cancelable. They already took away the properties of it going over lows immediately on the first startup, so I think it's a little bit of a double whammy for them to also take away the upper side hitbox. Just really unfortunate. I didn't think it was a particularly broken button. And then next up, her jumping C and jumping D are going to have more active frames on the way down, so that's good. You can kind of hit it earlier and it will still hit the opponent. And that's for jumping D, now for jumping C. Alright, so kind of minor buffs to me, because her jump arc isn't as fast or short as other characters like Heroine or K, so it's not something that's going to help her catch people crouching anyways. Next up, so her command normal in the air, you can now use it using the back motion. So if you don't know, for Athena players, like this command normal can be done in the air, and it helps her backdash further away. Now the problem is that the command normal is a forward motion, so when you backdash, you have to press forward to do it consistently like this. But SK is going to make it easier, so that all you have to do is backdash, hold back, and it's going to be easy for you to kind of just get away and zone and be annoying with Athena. Alright, the next buff, or sorry, nerf, is that Psycho Ball, kind of similar with Mai's projectile, is that on block, the opponent is going to be able to recover 2 frames faster. So this move is going to be a less plus. So again, kind of a general nerf to all fireballs here to weaken the zoning game for 15. And then the next buff here, let's see, Psycho Sword, they're going to change the blowback on this animation here, except on the last hit. So here's a problem with Athena before. So if you try to combo this and super cancel it into her barrier super, the problem is that the opponent will fly way too far away for the super to connect. So now they're going to make it so that the opponent doesn't fly away until the last hit. And I'm kind of messing up the motion here. There we go. So now this is going to combo more consistently. I thought that should have been a thing in the first place, so I don't exactly see this as a buff. It's more like a fix to me. Okay, next up, Psycho Reflector. So they're going to add a light kick version where it doesn't reflect anymore. You're still going to have to use the D version when you want to reflect. So to me, I don't know why they're making these changes across reflects across the board, because there's no benefit to not reflecting as opposed to reflecting. And the frame data of when you recover, it doesn't exactly change, right? I can still act right away, right? The amount of recovery is the same whether I reflect or not. So I'm not sure why why you would want to not reflect as opposed to reflecting it. So weird thing that SNK is doing with reflects. Alright, next up, Phoenix Arrow EX version. So this is not gonna cross up anymore. So this is how it typically crosses up. This is the B version, and now this is the EX version. It's not gonna cross up anymore. I'm not sure why they made this change. It's kind of one of the few like kind of sneaky things that Athena has, considering that she's lacking in other aspects, especially when it comes to combos. So you're gonna make her non-combo game strong, like fireballs and teleporting, and Phoenix Arrow. And now you're gonna nerf one of those things. Kind of silly. I'm not sure why they're doing this. They're also gonna reduce the knockback distance on block and increase guard recovery for the attack in midair. So basically, it's gonna be more punishable. So yeah, kind of a nerf that I don't think was necessary. Another nerf that I think really sucks is that this EX teleport used to have total invincibility after you travel, not on startup, only when you travel. And now they're gonna make it so that it's only invincible against projectiles. I think this is possibly one of the dumbest changes in the game, because there are characters whose teleports actually go through projectiles like K-dashes, and it doesn't require a bar, and it's faster, right? And Athena has a reflect already. She's got ways to deal with projectiles. Why would I use a fucking teleport to deal with a projectile when I could use a reflect instead? It's so stupid. This move is useless now. It was already useless in my opinion anyways, because there's no startup invincibility. I think this EX teleport should have startup invincibility and should come out faster. The other nerf to the EX teleport is that they're going to increase the overall frames by 3. So I know some of you are looking at this like, whoa, that's fast, right? Well, it used to be faster. So she could sneak around and kind of, go from behind and get a combo out of it. But now it's going to give the opponent a little bit more time to react to it. So kind of an uncalled for nerf in my opinion, but well, hopefully they reverse that. Next up, Psycho Shoot C version. They're gonna make this a little bit faster on startup, and they're gonna increase the projectile speed, so it's a lot faster than what it used to be. Pretty good. Not that major though. And then next up, Psycho Shoot EX. They resolved the issue with this move can be super cancelled. So as you know, EX moves in this game cannot be super cancelled. It's not like it was in 13, and for some reason EX Psycho Shoot was super cancelable. So to me it's just a glitch fix. It's not really taking away anything from Athena, because if you're EX canceling this into a super, that's a waste of bar. It's not practical in terms of damage, so not really a meaningful buff in my opinion, or sorry, not a meaningful change. And then next up, her climax is going to have an expanded hitbox upwards. So the problem is that when you try to combo into this, especially in a corner after the barrier super, it would actually whiff in some situations, and now they're just going to expand the hitbox so that the climax hits more consistently. So again, not exactly a buff, it's more like a fix to what it should have been. So yeah, that's all the changes for Athena. Again, more nerfs than buffs. Like a lot of the buffs that I see is nothing that's game changing. It's more like fixing Athena's kind of problems to what it should be, and the nerfs to some of her tools is just to me it doesn't make sense, because it's not exactly like she's a broken character. It's not exactly that those tools were broken itself. So to nerf them just kind of doesn't make any sense. If they add another balance patch, which they probably will, most likely, I would like to see a couple changes, like maybe the EX version of this command grab. Kind of messed up there. Oh, I used the wrong motion. There we go. That this would be invincible on wake up. This should be invincible, because the DP is being the only invincible option along with the super. It's just not gonna work out for Athena, because she needs something more than a DP that moves her forward and it's easy to bait out and kind of puts her in a dangerous position. Okay, that's it for Team Super Heroine changes.